to call the February 12th regular meeting of the Board of Education to order. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, without Sue here tonight, we're missing her, but we have some extra room on the table here. I'll scoot over a little.
Elbow room.
I will reiterate the executive session motions. The board met in executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and the employment history of a particular person or persons. I don't have much in terms of opening remarks. I just want to say that I'm excited to hear what Dr. Garcia has to share about the Tri-States visit. Eileen and I had the opportunity to meet with the team for our board interview, and it's a really interesting discussion. I'm happy to be a part of it in that way. And what really struck me, bless you back there, what really struck me is the fact that as a district, at least in my time here, in this role, there's been a lot of change and a lot of really healthy readjustment to some of the work that's been done as well in regards to many things, but we were talking about science in this context. And I got very excited and a little bit like overwhelmed because I was just, the more we discussed, the more I recognized how much change is going on still. A lot of it coming from the state and some of it because of our strategic plan. And I'm just kind of inspired and excited and nervous, I guess, to see where we land in a few years. I kind of said to the interviewers that if they were to come back in like 5 years, I'd be really excited to hear what they saw, so I'll be excited to hear some. I think that gives us even more reason to have them here right now and discuss this topic, because I think they're going to give us so much direction to help answer some of the questions that are probably out there for us. So we'll hear more on this from Dr. Garcia soon. So this brings us to Section 3, approval of the minutes. Do you have a motion? 3.1, board minutes of the regular meeting, work session, technology, and the strategic plan.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Section 4, administrative and committee reports. 4.1 is the superintendent's report.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We've got lots of announcements to share tonight as part of my report. The first is unfortunately a very sad one. Very sad to share that Val Fraioli, who has been a lunch monitor and done additional clerical support for us at Colonial School, passed away unexpectedly this weekend. I had the opportunity to attend her funeral this morning, and it was, St. Catherine's was packed. It just, once again, a testimony to the connections that our staff have with the community, and it was wonderful to hear about her life and see all the people that loved her so much, and she will be very missed. We had a large contingent of our staff that were able to be there too, who are very, very much feeling her loss already. The students and parents, I think, and I know being connected to Colonial, there's been a lot of efforts already. Students writing cards for a family, and I think there's going to be a lot of different activities to celebrate her life. So we're going to definitely miss her presence with us.
They had, instead of homework, acts of kindness. So each day
That's
they
what
had
it
to come
was.
home and journal, like one nice thing they did at school that was unexpected and one thing at home. So it was kind of
Her
a nice
honor, yeah.
way to lead up to
That's great.
Valentine's Day and to honor her.
Yeah. We also, to move into some of the different activities around the district, last Wednesday, our elementary schools participated in World Read Aloud Day, as we do each year. Throughout the day, teachers and community members, principals, administrators, parents, high school students visited classrooms to read books to students. It is one of the most fun days in the district. We all run around to the buildings and take a turn, try to get to all 4 of the elementaries, and are usually pretty successful at it. Guest readers included our local police officers, firefighters, and of course, our own board president, Jessica DiDomenico. So thank you for coming in. Tri-States meeting, Tri-States. I was just going to echo what Jessica said about the incredible work, and again, Dr. Garcia will speak to it. But we just want to thank Dr. Callahan for the tremendous amount of work, and the team of teachers and administrators that work with him over the last 8 months or so, collecting materials, sorting materials, preparing, and even Mr. Sabalos and the work that he did to automate a lot of this electronically and make it just very accessible to the team of 18 outside evaluators that were coming and have been spending 3 days with us. So wonderful group of people that are here. They've already been so impressed not even just by our facilities and the hospitality, but what they're seeing in our classrooms, most importantly, and by our kids. One thing Tom did that I loved was he started the session off by having unscreened testimonies from some of our science students, Leah's son being one of them. And of course, that's just the best way. We basically, that kind of took the cake from the beginning of the session. So we'll hear more about that to come, but really appreciate all that Tom has done to put that day together for us, these days together. And we look forward to the recommendations that are going to come out of that. That'll help us drive those next 5 years worth of work. SEPTA meeting, just a reminder that tomorrow night at 6:30, SEPTA is hosting a presentation about the process of finding enrolling kids and best fit for a summer camp program. Our guest speaker, Ellen Wiley, will be explaining various types of camps and programs that exist and what a child's schedule might look like if they went to any of these. All are welcome to attend this informational session. We have fifth grade parent orientation coming up. The second orientation for fifth grade parents will be at 6:30 on Thursday, February 27th, after our Mud Week break in the middle school library. It's a great event to learn more about the transition to middle school. So if parents didn't make it to the prior orientation, definitely do your best to make it to this. There's a lot of useful information. We have a faculty staff basketball game going on. So if you're not at the orientation that night, or if you're there and drift off to something else, you can make your way to the middle school gym where a team of high school faculty and staff will be taking on students with basketball game. Tickets are $5 each, with proceeds benefiting Operation Smile. And that activity is sponsored by the High School Student Association. And I was very proud to say I finally, in year 3, made it into the Senior Talent Show. I think that's the mark of having arrived in the community. And I hear it was a very striking resemblance. Students spot on with their impersonation of me. And yes, we have had no snow days yet. So it's no longer that I'm from Saratoga or from upstate or from Canada. I think it's just the North Pole at this point. But anyways, appreciate the students' sense of humor, and I really appreciate all they do to put that together, and the advisors that work to do that as well. And finally, I'm going to go through some of our specific brag sheet accomplishments of our high school students, as we always love to do. On Saturday, February 1st, the Pelham Memorial High School forensic speech team traveled to the Convent of the Sacred Heart in Greenwich, Connecticut for their annual tournament. Congratulations to the team for winning 5th overall, and congratulations to Rebecca Jacobson, finalist in dramatic performance, Georgia Conley, 5th place in varsity oral interpretation, Kirsten Abinega in 5th in JV oral interpretation, and Tommy Roche 3rd in varsity extemporaneous speaking. Congratulations to all. On Saturday, February 1st, Isaac Blackburn was invited to attend the Pennsbury Invitational Forensic Speech Tournament in Fairless Hills, PA. Congratulations to him for winning 2nd place in congressional debate. He has now qualified for the New York State Championships to be held in April at Hofstra. On February 1st, our Science Olympiad team competed in the regional championship and came in 3rd place out of 41 teams. We are all very excited to go to the state championship on from March 13th and 14th. Congratulations to the following medal winners specifically. We have, for anatomy and physiology, 2nd place, Vedika Basavadia and Asher Lal. And for circuit lab, in 5th place, Sharias Basavidia and Julia Meyerson. Codebusters, 4th place, Sarita Negasar, Julie Meyerson, and Sophie Shu. Designer Jeans, Genes, not Jens, 1st place, Emily Nakayama and Peter Wei. Detector building, 3rd place, Julia Meyerson and Sharias Basavatia. I'll get it right by the 3rd time. Disease detective, 4th place, Emily Nakayama, Peter Wee. Dynamic planet, PLANIT, 2nd, Oning Gong and Ann Liu. Geologic mapping, 2nd place, Sophie Shu and Asher Lau. Ornithology, 4th place, Anna Liu and Sarita Nagasar. And Right Stuff, as in WRIGHT. I would have thought, who knows?
Maybe it's the Wright brothers.
Right, oh, there you go, thank you, Wright brothers. Right Stuff, 2nd place, Vedika Basavitaya. And 2 more. We were very proud in varsity boys swimming. We had our 1st league championship. Awesome job. And one of the events that I think is our 2nd year doing this, our girls basketball team played in the Pride on the Court event hosted by Sarah Lawrence. They had a great opportunity to go up there and hear from speakers in the LGBTQ community and play a game in honor and support of the efforts of those students.
Last year was the boys basketball.
one.
right?
Yes,
Oh, that's
yeah,
great
so
that
second
they-
time I think that we participated in that regional event. And
Cool,
that ends
that
up.
the girls got the chance.
Yeah, girls went this year. Great,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. 4.2 is Board of Education Committee reports. I mentioned last time that Eileen and I had the chance to go to the legislative forum last Thursday evening, and so you took such great notes. I thought maybe you could reiterate a few of the things that we heard.
Sure. So it was hosted by the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association, and it was meant to bring together board members and our local elected officials to discuss budget priorities. It was really interesting. Jess and I sat at Amy Pollan's table, and it started off by going around the table and saying what your main reason was for being there. And Jess spoke for us and, of course, noted foundation aid, which was on everybody's list. But Jess also pointed out that this year, one priority that we've added is help in the way of mental health supports, so funding for that. And it was good to see that at our table, other districts also came with that intention. And some of them even were spewing statistics about things that are going on in their districts that are really disturbing. Then towards the end, all of the elected officials had a few minutes to speak, and we definitely got the sense that at other tables it was the same, that everybody was talking about mental health and its importance, and of course, foundation aid. So that was great. Okay. A few things that we heard about foundation aid were all the legislators are focused on updating the indices of the formula rather than trying to get a new formula. The reason being that the existing formula, at least we know what it is. A new formula would likely diminish our support as a high-performing and wealthy district. We also heard a lot about the consolidation of expense-based aid. There are 10 categories that fall into expense-based aid, and Amy Pollan told us that her districts really only focus on 4 of those. So she only advocates for those 4, BOCES being a big one, the biggest one. Something else she told us is that for mental health, for aid for mental health issues, that would not be expense-based aid, and likely our district would not get very much of it. So in the beginning of the event, she was very much negative about advocating for mental health stuff. And Jess and I got the sense that by the end, when we heard all the other tables and what they had been talking about, that there was a real sense that mental health was a big priority for everybody in that room. And not that she said, I'm going in and I'm getting us some money, but she definitely felt softer. So not as negative, which was great. And Jess, did you have anything else?
No, I think right now the way that we were really focused as a committee about the idea when it comes to mental health on just like flexible funding for so many of these initiatives, that every time there's a crisis or there's a state mandate, like to have a school counselor in every elementary school, but our budgets are tight, that we would have some flexible funding. And right now the setup is more in grant money that we're all fighting for. And so everybody was in agreement that that's not a good feeling. If we all need it, it shouldn't be a structure where we are all applying for grants and, X, Y, or Z district gets it and the others don't. So that was sort of the direction of the conversation. But it was a healthy conversation. Amy Pollan definitely echoed some of what you said, which was she was very focused on fighting for things that are going to benefit her districts. And so making sure that we're pointed at what we're asking for, not just generally asking for things. So to the extent that we as a district can share some of the differences that have occurred in our district, whether it comes from English language learners, their population, that could help her advocate better for our district.
Is she's on the education committee, right? What is her role in state legislature in education?
She's on the committee, correct?
Does she chair that committee?
She doesn't chair the
didn't
committee.
chair?
No, she's not the chair.
She's not the chair.
Andrea,
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know that, and I don't know that she's on the committee. I honestly don't remember.
I don't know.
I think
But she definitely has a strong voice and
Yeah,
understands
that's what I was
education
that's what I was
issues
wondering. I
very
thought-
well.
And then there's Madeline Smith there too, so
That's
she
right.
knows quite a bit.
Yes, that's where apparently the former board presidents of Pelham go to work.
Mhm.
So,
Pretty much all,
Okay.
yeah.
Up there too.
Do we have any other committee reports? Okay. Assistant Superintendent's update on authentic learning.
Sure, so, welcome, and, just I guess a brief overview that really what's happening, what happened today, what happened yesterday, and then tomorrow's inclusion of the really it's 2.5-day tri-state visit. We are part of this group called the Tri-State Consortium. There are, a number of districts in the region who basically serve as critical friends to one another. And it's been in existence in, I think, the early 90s, and I believe that Pelham was one of the pioneer districts. That was one of the first members of the consortium. So every 3 years, they come and evaluate a school district, and it does act as a substitute to, let's say, a middle states evaluation as well. There's an accreditation process. So through this evaluation, we're accredited as a school district. And the past few years since I've been here, my first year, I believe it was the follow-up visit on social studies. And then we had a tri-state visit on writing K-12. And then this year, we decided that we would focus on science K-12. And really, when I was speaking about it yesterday to the group of 18 visitors, I emphasized that this is a journey and that we pretty much still early on in this journey of looking at science K-12 and establishing a new curriculum, especially at the elementary level, and a different lens that's been influenced by the current and the past strategic plans, looking at science more through a perspective of active engagement and design thinking and critical thinking and inquiry and engineering. So there are essential questions which are established by our team led by Dr. Callahan, and they basically then, through a series of interviews, we have many bins with physical evidence of different lessons and student activities and everything that goes on in the district that they can comb through. There's digital evidence as well, especially from our last year's STEAM Day, which we've spoken about before, which was broadcast live, videoed by students who were in high school, and they went down to the middle schools, elementary schools. So there's a host of evidence, and one of the highlights is also stakeholder interviews, and I know Jessica's been part of that, and Eileen was part of that as well. So parents and groups of teachers, groups of administrators, groups of students as well. And it really gives, I think, a good insight into what we would call like the life of a Pelham student, their life science, what it's like to be a science student in this school district from K all the way to 12. So there's been a lot of work, as Cheryl was talking about, that's been put into it, and usually it begins in like the spring before, so there's a lot of preparation work. And it does take a lot of time to kind of put it together because we want to make sure that we're showcasing the best of Pelham. But they also go visit classrooms and they visit what the learning that goes on in the district. And then it culminates with an event tomorrow around 10:30, which is called a consultancy. And they kind of get into, a few of the members of the evaluation get into a circle, kind of like a fishbowl. And they ask members of our team certain questions. So tomorrow, the people who will be representing the district, besides Cheryl and myself, will be, of course, Dr. Callahan, Beth Finkelstein, Emily Kaiser, Alicia DeMaestro, Maria Buckley, and Joe DeBello. So it's a pretty impressive team who really reflect how science is taught and how science is learned in our school district. And what they do is they ask some probing questions, and then we kind of sit back, and then they have like a discussion. And it's sort of like you pretend that you're not really there. It's sort of like a consultancy. They're basically giving us advice or their thoughts through wonderings, like I wonder this, I wonder that. And it lasts about a half an hour, 45 minutes. And then it gives us insight into their thinking. And then there's a debrief with the leadership team, with members of the committee, just to kind of talk about how those 3 days went. There will be a subsequent report that's shared with us. And then we kind of learn a little bit more about our peers in terms of what they think we're doing well in areas for growth in terms of science K-12. So that is pretty much what it is in a nutshell. They come back and visit a year later as a half-day consultancy to kind of talk about how much growth we've hopefully have demonstrated a year later. But it's a really good experience. But in terms of like kind of what they're focusing on, It is highlighted in the essential questions, but something that we call the science and engineering practices. And essentially, you're kind of like, people may be asking, what does that mean? And it really reflects, I think, what we've sort of developed into the Pelham inquiry cycle. And the state kind of formulated this in the next generation science standards, which isn't really from this New York State, but it was adopted by New York State. So the science and engineering practice, what it all means is a framework that revolves around asking questions, designing and experimenting, collecting and organizing data, analyzing errors, and then communicating your findings. So that essentially is like an inquiry cycle. It's very reflective of science research, and that's part of the reason why we adopted this, inquiry cycle in the district, which is really in its infancy as well. But it's not just a science thing. It should be cutting across all subject areas, because we looked at the IB, we looked at AP, we looked at the new Regents changes in the standards and what they're asking of students to be able to demonstrate. So it's not just about engineering and science and math. It's about more than that. And we're trying to create that framework as more of a design thinking model for our kids and for our teachers. So that's part of our journey. So we're asking these people to come in to see how we're doing, basically. And again, it goes back to thinking critically and creatively. So we're very excited about to see and listen to what this consultancy has to offer and what they're going to say to us. We've all experienced, many of us experienced individual interviews already, so I know maybe a little insight in what they may be asking about. But what was refreshing, to be honest with you, is that many members of the team are teachers themselves, or those who may be newer in their careers, administrators or leaders, but are maybe a year or two removed from being teachers. So there's a fresh insight, and I noticed that from the members of the team that are visiting us, which is good for me. The 3 people who interviewed me, this was their first visit. And I said to the members of the team welcoming them yesterday that some of the best professional learning that I've experienced as an educator is being part of a visit team to see what is happening somewhere else. And my hope for them, it really wasn't, well, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about us. It's more about, I hope there's something you can take away from what you've learned about us and use it in your schools. Or say, hey, we'd like to come back and learn more about this or that. Because really that collegial thinking of then meeting people from other school districts and finding out what's going on is, I think that's the richness of what Tri-States is all about. So we're excited to hear what they have to say, but we're looking forward, I think, really to the next visit in the future, and hopefully, we'll pick one area we haven't seen in a while.
And the report, is that something that
You'll see it.
share with the
Yeah,
board?
we'll definitely share with you guys. And it's a lot of times it's an affirmation of what we think, and it's also things that, I know Tom Callahan mentioned this yesterday, how part of the writing visit a couple of years ago talked about writing in the content area. And an outgrowth of that is the emphasis and the change on lab reporting, where it used to be more packet heavy and it wasn't really about student design questions and thinking about what they were doing in the lab report. So, and even in science research, how our kids very much do well on the presentations, but the writing aspect of it, and the PEF has helped us with that in getting and having one of the former Byram Hills teachers of science research to help teach our teachers and help teach our students on how to write better reports so that they can compete with other students. And really that was an outgrowth of the writing visit from Tri-State. So it kind of does weave together, and it's good to see that. Like that for me is progress. And I know that there'll be things that will come out of this visit that will help us as well.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Assistant Superintendent's update on the whole child, 4.4.
Thank you. So our MTSS secondary committee started looking at the different social emotional learning programs that are out there. And at the last meeting last month, I had a couple of months ago asked for a survey around the county to see what different districts are using for their SEL program, K through 12. And so I shared the results with everyone. And I would say the most adopted programs were the Universal DBT program, the Yale Ruler program, and Second Step. And so we're going to continue to explore what those programs offer and how they align to what our needs are. So that is the work of our MTSS 612 committee. In terms of special education, we are approaching the annual review season. So that will be starting right after the winter break. And as Dr. Champ mentioned, we have SEPTA meeting tomorrow night. So I hope everyone will come and join us. The school counseling department has been very busy last week. There were some presentations on the 3rd. Juniors and sophomores were invited for the BOCES Career Technical Center presentation to see what type of career training options they might be able to enroll in next year. So that was on the 3rd. On the 6th, we had Jean Holdsman, Assistant Director of Admission from Fordham University, who presented on the topics of the college search, strategies, and factors in selecting a college, and updates in the college admission process. On the 7th, we had the Career Awareness Workshop again, and the topic was on technology and engineering, and the panelists for the workshop were from Pelham, who work in the different startups and different technology agencies. So that was exciting for the students. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I will just jump in a little bit, and Julia's mention of CSE season reminded me. Unfortunately, with the construction project, which is the transition to Jim's reports, Julia's office, as well as Tom and Maria, the curriculum directors, are gonna have to be moving out of their offices so they prepare the space for demo right as they're starting special education, it's a CSE season. So thanks in advance to Julia and her office. We've come up with some preliminary plans of how we can tuck them into some spaces here for the 2 months until we get to the summer, and by then we're hoping that the house is prepared for office moves and we have rental space. So that's gonna be an adventure.
It will be, but
Yep.
we can work anywhere.
We're gonna have
All
a
good.
kind of sardine-like
Thank
feel
God for
down in my
technology.
area. Julia's
All
gonna get, so we'll be sharing some of those plans as we move through the planning process, but I do appreciate the flexibility that they're gonna be showing for these next couple months.
Thank you. 4.5, Assistant Superintendent's update on finance and facilities.
Hi, good evening, thank you. Just kind of go over some couple of things quickly. I'll start off with the capital project. Going to tie into what Dr. Champ mentioned. We've been looking to secure office space for Dr. Champ's group, the PPS group, and the curriculum group. Looks like we're working on a space with a realtor, and we hope to have something for July 1st. And of course, we would bring that to the board. It would be a lease, and kind of how we went through the process last year. That would be part of the budget vote. We want to make sure everybody's aware that we have to, that we would have this in our budget. It's part of a requirement you have when you lease office space, and we have to get permission from the state for that as well. It's a rather rapid process, but it's just a formality we would have to go through. So we're in that process. We are looking at the packing and the planning stages and everything else, and we're waiting to get a final ruling from the state on the variance for whether or not we would need a sprinkler for 314 Pelhamdale. But in the meantime, we're lining up folks to look at some of the other work that can be accomplished before that. For example, the porch deck, the concrete deck needs to be repaired. It's in disrepair right now. So those are the types of things we're looking at to try to get ahead of in anticipation of that final approval. Hutchinson School this evening will be asking the board to approve Contract 1, which is for the general contractor. When we get to that item, we have representatives from Triton Construction Management, as well as KG&D here.
Actually hoping to have any discussion at this point,
Okay,
just so that the team can
great.
get on with their evening.
So I'll loop back to them when I get to the other
Yeah,
items.
at the end of your report, if you would, thank you.
The plans for Prospect Hill will go out to bid publicly tomorrow. And the rebid for the roofing and the masonry for the middle school, high school is expected to go out in the very near future as well, within the next week or two, I believe. So we'll have final pricing for the roofing and masonry as well as Prospect Hill at the same time for the last really 2 unknown parts of the capital project. The field work is kind of in a holding pattern right now for the weather to clear. We're working with the field manufacturer. We've got the final proofs completed for the production, and we had a walkthrough. Triton had a walkthrough with the site, managed the sports tech a little bit to go through kind of some of the work that needs to be done, and they're getting ready for the final walkthrough prior to that carpet being done and the staging and the work that needs to be done, as well as the tennis court work that will have to be done once the weather gets to a temperature that allows this work to happen, which is usually 50 degrees and rising.
And is it 50 degrees for a number of days in a row?
It would be, yes.
Unfortunately.
So for the tennis courts, we feel the window will appear that much faster, but the carpet, keep it on the carpet. The artificial turf being such a larger job with the glue, you're gonna need that much more time. So we would expect that to just be longer for that reason, and needing all that stitch work and the gluing and everything else with the lines and the details that have to be completed.
Because I get a lot of baseball guys that want to play now.
Yeah. It's a rough game right now. It's all
And
gravel.
it's pretty much 50 degrees now, so.
That's right. It does feel
Frustrating.
it
It's
does
been a
feel
mild
pretty
winter,
good.
but not a
Very
steady or dry winter.
Exactly. What did
Exactly.
you say? It's supposed to be 8 degrees on Friday?
I
or
think
something
I
like
heard
that?
something with
Yeah.
wind chill 8 degrees on Friday morning. So
Yeah, it's,
so it is still
That's-
February.
yes.
As Eileen mentioned, Assemblywoman Amy Paulin is very active in the budget process throughout the state. Business officials that are part of her district, we all met last 2 weeks ago now to talk about our priorities. Really, a large part of what it is that expense-driven aid and our foundation aid, BOCES, building aid. We don't receive too much transportation aid, and ours actually went up a little bit, but it's all very important. And she's drafted a letter, which she does every year, to work collegially with all her representatives throughout the state, and we've had success in past years as well. So we're excited about seeing where that will come. The state budget expected to pass at the end of March, so we would know April 1st time period. So before the board approves the final budget, but after we release the first budget from Dr. Champ's budget. And the board meeting tonight, we're asking the board to approve professional services for a professional engineer with regard to a law that was passed by Westchester County in 1987. It has to do with boilers that produce more than 1 million BTUs per hour that burn fuel oil. It's a law that's never been enforced, that Westchester County has begun to enforce and has made us aware that they expect us to be in compliance with that law. The facilities department met with other facilities directors throughout the county. We've identified a professional engineer who can do this work at a rate that we feel is very competitive. We know of other districts that have paid significantly more for similar work. And with this, we want to move forward so that we are compliant with the 1987 law. The good news is we got an exemption for Hutchinson because we're tearing it down, and we won't have to do it with the new school because that school will burn solely natural gas. But any of the schools that burn oil, we have that issue.
Jim, is that a yearly certification?
It's a one-time certification for the equipment. So if we replace the boilers, we would have to do that again. It's interesting what you learn with these laws sometimes. We are recommending, with the recommendation from Triton and KG&D, that this evening that the board reject the bids for the roofing and masonry. I mentioned that will be going at the bid again shortly. And then we have a report for non-resident tuition students. This is in compliance with the board policy, and that was discussed last spring as well. So it's part of that notification. And then we're asking you to approve the BOCES cooperative bids. This is a really great work that the legislators come out with, where we can piggyback on bids from other municipalities and public entities. Saves us a lot of time, saves us advertising money, and we do get a lot of value in piggybacking on these bids, and this one comes through BOCES. And our usual disposal of equipment that we have this month, it happens to be computer equipment. And that's where I am right now. So if I could ask just Kevin Sawyer from Triton and Walt Hauser from KG&D, if they would, just to kind of give the board an idea of where we are with the project for Hutchinson School. We awarded contracts 2 through 6 at the last board meeting. This award is for contract 1, and kind of where we were at the end of the first bid that the board rejected, where we are with this and the work that's done to bring this recommendation forward. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Kevin Sawyer from Triton Construction, the school district's construction manager. And it's Walter Hauser from KG&D. On January 16th, we publicly opened bids for the Hutchinson new school project, which also included the site work and the future demolition of the existing building. We were very happy with the total amount of contractors that came out. It was more than I've seen in a very long time. We have previously awarded in the past board meeting contracts 2 through 6. Tonight, we are here to talk about contract 1, which is the general construction contract. There were 6 total bidders for the GC portion of this project. We reviewed the bottom 3, and more specifically, the bottom 2. We had multiple conversations, both meetings as well as telephone conversations, that had both of our companies involved with the 2 low bidders, and then subsequently met with the bond steering committee to have a discussion about what our findings were with these low bidders. And tonight, we are here to answer any questions that the board or community might have on the recommendation to move forward with UNIMAC, the low bidder, with a base bid of $18,198,000.
Okay.
I'm just going to say it's nice to be here tonight with some good news.
Yes.
I know you've awarded some of the contracts, but I'd just like to reiterate Kevin's point that the bid results were excellent this time around. The rebidding really paid off and resulted in a significant net savings to the district. I would also just like to say thank you for your patience in our review of the bid results. As you can see, the sum total of the general construction contract is significantly more than the sum total of all the other contracts combined. And it represents a fair amount of work and required some very thorough vetting for the contractor's understanding of the scope, their qualifications for the work, and of course their financial stability. So it took a little longer to do that for the general contractor than it did for the other trades, but we're ready now to make the recommendation to move forward with UNIMAC. We are also not recommending award of the alternates at this point in time. They're not critical path for the construction to commence, and UNIMAC has expressed that they will maintain the majority of those alternate prices. So.
Great. Thank you for that reminder too about the due diligence, because that was, and I know the board is aware of this, but for the public's sake, we'd hoped to have that vetting done for the special meeting, but it just, as you said, it was just too important to get it right and to be as thorough as possible. So that was the reason for canceling that meeting and moving it to tonight. So appreciate the work that you both of your teams have done to make sure that everything was explored that needed to be.
I think the other part is, Kevin or Walt, if you could talk a little bit about next steps, kind of the planning process and the community engagement part as well.
So if the board does elect to award this contract tonight, we are hoping to have our first kickoff meeting Friday. That will include all the trades and all the primes. And so we're really excited to we've done a lot of talking for the past year. This is it's a real project. It's really happening. At that meeting, we're going to try and put together some timelines so that we can talk about perhaps having a community meeting sometime in the future, so that we can bring all your neighbors and all the local community up to speed with where we currently are and what we're anticipating to start. And we are thinking that it's going to happen pretty quickly. So we'd like to get that information out.
And Kevin, I know that we're going to be putting our normal board summary out, press release about the meeting. But to that point, how soon could we potentially see equipment starting to move on site for initial staging?
Once we have contracts in place and bonds and insurances are approved by the district and their insurances, it could happen in days.
Okay, so we're talking realistically the next week or 2 weeks?
Yes.
That the neighbors may
could
start seeing, not construction yet,
Not
but just
construction,
equipment
mobilization,
moving into place.
bringing equipment on the site, starting to stage some things. that could happen rather
Great.
quickly.
And I know that we'll be speaking after the kickoff and working on more specific timelines to share with the community in that engagement meeting that you mentioned. We're probably looking, I think when we talk, we're maybe mid-March, somewhere in that time frame
Yeah, I think that'll be
for
good.
community meeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
again, needing the time to develop the detail, of course, but we want to be able to have as much information for the community at the time. So we will be coming, we will be working on a date. As we collaborate next week, we'll be coming out with a date for that meeting so that our community can come and find out what's next finally, after looking at a big, flat, empty space for 6 months.
It's been growing grass.
It's been growing it very nicely,
It'll-
but
it'll-
it's
it'll come
time
very
we do
quickly.
something different with it.
I know the timelines have changed a number of times, and every time you show up, I ask about timelines, so I apologize, but there's a lot of curious people out there, and one of the questions that has come up is, to what extent, you know, they've noticed that there's been a huge lull, literally, there was a lot of big bang this summer, and then things have just been
Literally.
quiet, so, we started and ended with bang, so, how much did this set us back? Like, if we start mobilizing in the next week or two, where are we right now versus where we thought we might have been at this point?
Well, I mean, we're, between the old bid and new bid, there's a month or so of time that we've lost in going through that process. But in no way have we suffered from any time loss in the construction program. We plan on having the school building open for September 21's first day of school, September of 2021, sorry, first day of school, and that is still the plan. We had many conversations with all the prime contractors in reference to that timeline, and as we stand here today, we feel very confident that we can make that date.
Thank you. I just wanted you to be able to say that.
Do you want to talk about the bond steering committee's endorsement of this?
Good point, so
You want me to
I can do it or
I'm
just.
asking Jessica if
Sure.
feel like
Right,
weighing
I guess
in.
I should have weighed in, maybe, I mean, it wasn't really a committee meeting, but we did have a subset of the bond steering committee and the board members from bond steering meet with the two low bidders and had these conversations with Triton and KG&D. And we had some time afterwards to talk about it, and the committee all it endorses the recommendation to go forward with UNIMAC. I think they seem very excited about the project, and we believe that they're ready to go for it, and we are really excited to get it going. Is there anything else you wanted to add on it, John? I think it's a good mix of people on bond steering, like it's a great community members that we have, and they're very involved, and we're really appreciative of their time, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have an excellent bond steering committee, and they're people very experienced with the construction industry from all sides, from working on the site to financing to management, you know, all aspects of the construction process, from small projects to immense projects. So, so it's really great to have their input and their involvement.
And they
It's very
came
helpful.
in twice last week, or 2 weeks ago for these
Yeah.
meetings. We had a bond steering meeting on Monday, and they were back Thursday night for interviews, like really helping us move this along as fast as we could. So it was really an important step in the vetting process, and we're happy to move forward.
Of all of our committees, that one definitely has a lot of time involvement, you know, and early meetings and late meetings. so.
Yeah,
And
it's hard
for
to
our
know
board
when to
members
meet.
too, so.
There's
Yeah.
never a good time with that,
No.
that population of residents, but, okay. Any more questions?
So the second
Okay.
part, I think that Mr. Riquet wanted to talk about was the board not awarding the masonry
Masonry.
at the high school, middle school project,
The annex.
the annex. Okay, so it was determined that through the consultants, that we were not comfortable enough with making a recommendation for the award of wall for this project. And our recommendation is to not award and to go back out to rebid for that particular portion of the project, which is the masonry and roofing at the annex, stonework at the high school, and various other things.
Kevin, could you just remind kind of what, how quick we anticipate the turnaround on that, and if we do anticipate moving any of that project forward this summer, even despite rebidding?
Sure. I think we're already talking with the school district about setting up the invitation to bid and the dates already. So we're turning it around very quickly to go back on the street. We are hoping that the date for the bid opening will be somewhere close to the date of the bid opening for Prospect Hill, which is also taking place as we speak. And so that we have a sense of what all of the overall costs are for construction at that time.
Is when the bid will be reissued. Right now, that's the plan for the roofing and the masonry.
Remind me, is that still a summer project?
So that was kind of, was that a longer duration, Kevin? How did that work out?
We're going to try and continue to keep that same schedule. Some of the roofing products are a little bit longer lead items, so we just have to see how the timing works out for that. But we'd like to try and get at least the roofing done. There are leak problems that we have in the building. We know that. It's been very well documented, very well maintained by the school now, but it does need to be addressed as quickly as possible. So we want to make these projects happen for you as quickly as possible.
So I just wanted to reiterate, the plans for Prospect are going out tomorrow, is that what you said?
That's right. They'll be made public for public bid tomorrow. The advertisement's ready to go.
Thank you.
And Kevin, with the masonry, that's work that could extend into the school year as it's predominantly exterior, correct?
Yes, that is correct. It requires removing some of the old existing stone that's on the building. There are some areas that will just have to be done over the summertime due to its location to main entrances and the complexity and the difficulty of the work. But there are some areas that actually could be done through the school year, where we're taking small pieces off, doing some repairs behind the wall and putting it back. So we're going to be looking to try and get some pieces of it done through the school year, and then hit it hard during the summer.
And any work that's done during the school year is going to be second shift, nights and weekends, so.
We'll be talking lots more about that, I'm
That's
sure.
Yeah. I apologize for not getting into details, but
Yeah, no, and
I
that's.
like to get the thing awarded first,
Yes.
and then we can talk.
Yeah.
It's a lot of balls up in the air, you know.
Definitely. And I think to your point, those are a lot of the details that we said once we got past the kickoff meeting and got into next week and we're able to really nail these down. Those are the type level of details that we're hoping to really have in hand for the community once we've fully
Sure, well,
gone through them.
now that you have contractors on board,
Exactly.
they have commitments that they have to make.
Right.
We're gonna get
It
those
becomes
commitments
very
from
real
them
now.
instead of from the design teams.
Yes.
And let's hear it from the horse's mouth what they can do,
Right.
and then I'll pass all that on to the community.
I just want to point out that the masonry work at the high school in particular, you know, this has been ongoing for a number of years. So it's really just more of the same kind of work that's being done. So I think, you know, the community's seen the scaffolding up, they've seen this work happening,
And it's been ongoing.
and it's been ongoing. So there's nothing new or different in particular about the masonry work at the high school than what's been done in years past. You don't have huge crews,
Right.
you know, surrounding the building. You have limited crews doing limited pieces and moving one piece to the next to go around the building.
There's also more spacing around the high school, middle school complex than you have at some of the
Oh,
elementary
yeah,
schools
for
where
sure.
the houses are right on top of the
Yes.
school, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much,
Great.
everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, anything else?
Nope, that's where we are. Thank you.
Okay, we have big Section 5 policy monitoring and governance, a number of third readings, and
It is an exciting night for policy. Okay, so we'll start with the student health services. Nothing has changed on this one. So this is just the
Ready
third
to
reading.
go.
Anybody have any questions?
okay, hold
Um,
on, I have to take,
No, I know, so I was just
Okay.
going to recommend that we go ahead. and
that
vote.
we take a vote?
Yes,
Okay,
go ahead.
okay. We started it.
Make a motion?
We started in reverse, that's why I
Oh,
got
sorry.
thrown off. Okay, so policy 7510, student health services, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Oh, do we make-
I, for one, would like to say, I hope we don't have to see that when it
Right?
next year.
It's been on the docket a lot.
A lot of time and energy has gone into making this an outstanding
Yes,
one that we hopefully
many
will not have to
thanks,
touch.
especially to
next year.
Julia and Jean Farrell.
Yes.
Very healthy students.
Yes.
So the next one is policy 7511, immunization of students. This is also the third reading.
Yeah, and so nothing has changed on this one either.
Do I have a motion?
So, second.
Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to highlight the reminder on this one. This policy was updated because of changes in New York State regulations around removing the religious exemption that used to be in place. So we don't have many students in the district impacted by this whatsoever, thankfully, but that's really what the impetus for reviewing of this policy. This will bring us into state compliance now.
Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, policy 7512, student physicals. This is also the third reading. No changes, right?
Oh, no changes. Sorry, I thought we had to do the motion first. I got all confused. No changes to this one.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So,
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Policy 7513, administration of medication. I guess I could take a, I don't know, we've done so many of these. Okay.
Okay,
Another
so-
policy that we're done with.
This one, there is a change. You may recall that a couple of readings ago, we talked about this one list of topicals that were specifically listed in parentheses. And we felt like there was no real reason to specify those topicals versus others. Some of them were simply incapable of enforcing. And when we spoke to everybody who we need to speak to, there didn't seem to be a reason to keep it. So we removed it. It's in the second paragraph. You'll see it says, as over-the-counter medications, comma, including topical medication. And that was where the parentheses were, and it listed a number of topicals. So it's no longer there.
Do I have, I'll ask for questions or comments in a moment. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Oh.
Okay.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Do you see it?
No, it looks like it cleared, like I was just looking at the edited version and it looked like something was not stricken, but
Yeah, I saw that.
apparently it is in the final version.
Oh.
It was Vaseline
In accordance with New
other
York,
items.
is what looks appear on
In accordance with?
New York.
Oh. Well, the,
I'm sure,
that in the second line, in accordance with New York State regulations?
the part that says in accordance with New
Oh,
York
I
was
see.
not stricken.
Yeah, it looks like the strike through is off by like
Oh, okay.
a few.
But I'm
characters.
sure that's a typo, and
But
I'm
I
sure
think
it's
it's just
corrected.
in the stricken, in that version.
Maybe.
It's in the final version, I
In the
believe,
final
it's
version, it
correct.
looks fine,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We have the second to last
To
stricken.
bring this up now.
Policy that just went
Okay.
by.
See,
Yeah.
So any other questions?
you won't get that biased, you know
Yeah.
that.
And I think
Goes
this
to
one,
show we're reading every
it
detail.
really does.
Sorry.
You know,
Got it.
And this one, I know,
Watching you.
we did lots of work on this last year, brought it to committee, and then realized it needed much more. So I think kudos to the committee.
It took several
Again.
meetings to even get it to the board table.
Yes,
last year,
Yes.
but
and then
it
back
went
to the
And
committee.
back, yeah.
But I
It's been a
do
lot of
think
this.
it is in a much clearer, better place, and to your point, it's something that's enforceable, something that's practical and reasonable, which is what we wanted.
And students will feel free to bring their lip gloss to school.
Feel free to
now.
bring your Vaseline lip gloss to school.
Do it.
and
Without
not be
bias.
confiscated.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions
Okay.
or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Policy 7515, head
Oh.
lice, the third reading.
It's my favorite one.
Everybody scratch.
Nothing new. Feel free to scratch your head.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Five.
more.
What's the total tally now?
I've lost
Oh.
count.
Millie,
Millie, any idea?
No, I
But like, it's something like, it's gotta be 12 or,
Yeah.
you know,
Easily,
10 to
yeah.
12.
This year, and then
So
last
far,
year was.
yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
significant.
And now we have our new nurse
Can't stop.
supervisor who will work with Jean Farrell
Yeah.
and Julia Chung to roll these out and make sure that we've got appropriate regulations at where needed and handbook, and I'm looking forward to just that tightening up of all this. So really, as much as we joke, thank you to the committee for persevering.
And who keeps us honest?
Policy 7131, education of homeless children and youth. This is the first reading.
So the big thing that changed here is the title. It used to be called Education of, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Students in temporary housing.
Yes, students in temporary housing. So now it is much more clearly homeless children and youth, because there could be kids in temporary housing who are not homeless. There are reasons, like their house is being renovated and they're in temporary housing and all is well. This is much more specifically in the title and then in the definitions and the headings of the sections, it's much more clearly noted to be homeless students. But nothing significant changed in the policy.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm wondering, should we change the file name? Because right now it's listed with the old title.
I
Education
saw
is-
that.
Millie, that's something that I think we may want. Yeah, so we changed the policy in the policy itself, but the file name needs to
Right.
change.
Yeah, the
So-
subject line is
Oh,
updated,
I
but
see.
not the
And
file
I would say
name.
maybe when we actually take action on it, we should act with the changed, with the amended name.
Right, so it's written properly here though, correct? But just,
No, that's, oh, actually, yes,
Yes,
yes.
that's
it's-
what got me
you're right,
confused as
the
well. So
agenda is
it's
written-
correct
It's
in the
just the
agenda,
actual
it's in
file.
the file.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
file name itself. Okay.
I got thrown off too because I thought I might have read the wrong thing and then I.
No, you're right. Yep, so it's just a file name. We'll change that for the next one.
11.
Oh,
I'm so proud.
Any more questions or comments about this one? It's first reading. Okay, policy 7522, concussion management, also the first reading. I'm sure Steve Luciana is very excited you guys
Yes.
got to
Yes.
this.
And he was very
Eager to have
involved,
this.
so that was helpful. No big changes on this policy either.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Made it to the end of section 5. Section 6, financial reports and motions. I'd like to consent 6.1 through 6.3. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, these are all everything related to the bond that we discussed earlier. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'll take 6.4 through 6.7 as a consent. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 6.8, motion to accept a donation. Do I have a motion? Okay, so I'd like to read this one out loud. The Board of Education does hereby accept the monetary donation of $2,160 to support the Academy Plus after-school program at the Pelham Memorial High School, and that gratitude be bestowed upon its donor, the Pelham Civics Association. And furthermore, that the Board of Education does hereby accept the monetary donation of $500 to support Hutchinson Elementary School, and that gratitude be bestowed upon its donor, ExxonMobil Educational Alliance Program. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, section 7, superintendent's personnel recommendations. I'll consent 7.1 through 7.4. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Anything you guys want to add?
We do have a modification of previous appointment for one of our teachers. We have some student observers, a number of them from local schools. And then also, this is the time period where we have some salary reclassification for teachers.
And we have a resignation of a school monitor. Thank her for her service. And reappointment of a part-time school monitor. Somebody came back who used to work as a monitor, and we're going to take advantage of them while they're here. They made themselves available. So welcome back to them.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Section 8, Pupil Personnel Services, we have Schedule D. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Section 9, New Business. Any new business? Section 10, Communications and Comments from the Public. Okay, Section 11, Adjournment of the Meeting.
Madam President, would you entertain a motion to adjourn?
I will. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy February break, everybody.
Feel free to pass the torch.